But yes, first of all, thank you for honoring the invite and coming to the podcast. Really, we don't take that for granted at all when people give us the chance to come and share some stories with us. So yes, you sent me a bio last minute, which is very interesting. I'll read it for the audience. So Collins Michael Mbulakyalo. I like your name, by the way, the last name. Mbulakyalo. I like it. Like it's a story. So Collins Michael Mbulakyalo is a seasoned full-stack developer, innovative tech leader, and passionate advocate for the tech ecosystem in Africa. A native of Kampala, Uganda, Collins embodies the spirit of progressive innovation and entrepreneurship that is driving the continent forward. His journey in the tech world began with fascination for coding, and it wasn't long before he was building applications and solutions that were solving real-world problems. In the podcast, Colin will have to tell us some of these. So he has worked extensively in various tech positions, including at prestigious companies such as Andela and Pareto, developing and maintaining software applications that enhance business efficiency and profitability. Collins is a fellow at Sigma Squad Society, a global community of young entrepreneurs on a mission to transform broken industries. His commitment to startup community is further evident in his work with Wapi, a talent marketplace he's spearheaded to address the shortage of job opportunities for graduates in Africa. That's really pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool. With Wapi, he's made significant strides towards democratizing access to digital skills and jobs. His professional experiences span diverse industries and continents. In Hong Kong, he served as a technical team lead for Gitstart, while in San Francisco, he was a web developer for Medable Inc. and a software engineer for Payway. At the Archetype in New York, he designed and developed software solutions tailored to API companies. Collins' work is not only about software development. He is a public speaker. This is again why he's now on Big Conversations. An intellectual discourse enthusiast and a Toastmaster. Fluent in both JavaScript and Python, Collins navigates the world of tech and innovation with poise and finesse. In the words of Collins, I do not just write lines of code, I create pathways for progress, empowerment, and transformation. His devotion to tech ecosystem and the African startup scene is unwavering. Collins is indeed a force to reckon within the global tech sphere. This is such a long intro, but I agree with it, by the way. Just for the listeners, I've also got a chance to work with you on a project. And truly, really, I've been inspired. Your leadership is amazing. I like how you just self-free. You let your teammates just do their work. Yeah. But yes, from your intro, please tell me about it. Talk to us about it.
Yeah.
How have you risen to it?
Like I told you, that intro is ChatGPT doing the absolute most.
Yeah. But well, you prompted it, and this is what it came up with.
Yeah, exactly.
Still trying to define my problem. Yeah. Our biggest problem as Yuvatan.
Yeah.
So right now, our biggest problem is business. Yeah.
Yeah.
We feel like the business is generally slow, but because of the scope of how it's designed. So we're looking to hire salespeople, but these salespeople are put together like a whole sales strategy that defines our value propositions, picked out businesses that might need the services we give and whatnot. But then it's to find the skill that can actually sell, needs someone who actually does the business, maybe the content creator themselves, and then they can sell that idea to a company to do the content. Or we already need people who are almost like marketing managers to change around ads. We're into the business of recording ads and shooting content. So our biggest problem is sales, right? Yeah. We want a sales team, but we have tried getting people, facilitating them to town, and it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, you can't really measure how much you're giving them, and maybe you really can't follow them through to like go make your sales or whatnot.
Yeah.
So it becomes that tricky for us. But we want a sales team, but then only because we don't have business. So we don't need it full time, like you explained. Yeah. So how does Wapi help us?
Yeah, sure thing. So what we'll do in that case is one, like identify, are you looking for like physical sales or are you looking for like digital sales, right? And physical being like what you've talked about, foot soldiering, people going here, doing door to door, or are you looking for people to actually go around online, generate leads, reach out to these leads, set up meetings with these leads, and sort of like get you business that way, right? And that usually...
No, we're looking for people who, let me just come in. So we're looking for people who can identify, say, business and what we can do for that business, and then convince that business that they need to do. Say a telecom. Yeah. We need a guy who can like come up with an ad that is going to. We need a whole digital. We need to sell to like digital marketing agencies, for us to get business that can help us scale out, right?
Yeah. That's actually an interesting case there. I think in that case would set that out as sort of like a gig based approach, right?
Yeah.
Because again, you don't need these people here full time.
Yes.
So you need some people who are creative enough to like come up with this content and then like push it to this company. So in that case, we like tell you, okay, cool. So these are the people we have. We like present the opportunity to them, right? Tell them, okay, cool. Your term needs this done and that, but it's on a gig basis. Like it's not full-time work. So they like present their submissions, and of course they're like terms of engagement. Either we say this is like a trial submission, make that clear. And these are like some of the things that we always find to be important. So they submit, they'll be like, okay, cool. So they've given you an ad to like go and show Safe Border, let's say, and then you go and you do this with Safe Border. If at the end of the day this works out and you've like sort of made money, then that gig pays for like the work they have done, right? So the argument is, if you've closed Safe Border, Safe Border has given us this much money, you're getting paid this much, right? That's how we envision it if we're doing like a gig basis.
So, but this is how Wapi operates. Like you get me a job, then that job pays you as Wapi.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's result. How can I term it? Result oriented. Like I have to first get the job.
Pretty much, yeah. It's not that you're at Wapi and you're getting paid full time. No. You have to first get something and then you get paid for that work that you've like done. We found that that's the more sustainable way to do it, right? And this, I guess, also came from like my experience being at Andela, where initially we were there. And like it was
because Andela is also just trading developers.
Yes.
Okay.
And initially it was like a good life because even if you were working or not, you were still getting paid, right? And that was cool. And guys were balling, making money. Up until one day when they are like, you know what? This can't be going with. And that's when they sacked people. So learning from that, I was like, if we're building Wapi, we can't commit the same mistake.
That's interesting. How sustainable is that though? Like to these people, how do you drive traffic to get the people that sign up jobs? Yeah,
for the people that the people that put the jobs or the people that want the jobs?
The people that want the jobs.
For the people that
problem you're solving.
It's crazy that for the people that want the jobs, like they come in, we actually haven't invested, I would say, a single cent in like marketing or ads or anything like that, right? We've been running our social media channels, Instagram, Twitter. I think Twitter a lot because that's where the target audience where people are looking for are at and engaging with that. And then Instagram, running Twitter spaces, running lives, being at these events. And that attracts the people, right? So we've created some sort of awareness. It may not be as big, but it has worked for us on like the demand side. The side where it gets tricky is now the businesses themselves that are looking to hire these people, right? And I think that's where it becomes tricky. But what we've tried to do is like we're doing LinkedIn. You reach out on LinkedIn and you see people who are posting jobs and you reach out to those guys and you're like, hey, do you know you could use Wapi? Or sometimes we even go at like events where there are companies and talk to those companies. Like a random event where companies are meeting up, you talk to the people. That's how you get to like find your, I guess, next person hired.
Yeah. I feel like that's really genius though, the whole job problem solving thing. Because there seems to be, how do you rate the job market though? Do you feel like people are doing stuff that is employable?
I'd say it's a mix, honestly.
Because I've had some conversations with employers, right?
Yeah.
And often on it, they bring up that whole there's not enough skill for us to like scale out to what we want. We have mediocre skill to like people to reimburse people what's their worth. Return on investment to the labor doesn't make sense to most employers. How do you feel about that?
I feel it's midway, right? Well, okay, not even midway. There are people who are like really, really good at their craft, and I would say they are maybe not even still getting paid like their worth. Or there are those who are really good at their craft and they choose to export their talent or skills to places where they can get paid, right? And I think software developers are the best example. You'll find most guys here who are good don't want to work with a Ugandan company because they're going to pay you little. So I think that's a problem these employers are finding. The people that then fit into their budget are the people that don't have the good enough skills, right? Yet the people who are really skilled don't fit within the budget. So there's that imbalance right there. But at the same time, it's true. They're like people who actually aren't good enough. Like if you were to put us on a scale between Kenya and Ugandan talent, like man, Kenya, in some sort of way, their talent is refined, but they're also very organized in the things they're doing, right? Then when you go to Nigeria, these guys
are going to ask you about Nigeria.
They're hard, like they know what they want, so they're aggressive, they'll go for it. Ugandans.
Do you put that on individual brilliancy? I've heard people, there's a top, Ugandans, Nigerians are smart people, things like that.
No.
Do you think that makes sense?
I don't think it's individual brilliancy. I think it's the context within which you're raised, right? Here we're taught to like be laid back, don't be so aggressive. Hey, what will people say? You're overdoing it. Out there, no, it's normal. Like if you want something, go for it, right?
Yeah.
And of course, there are edge cases of people who are here, and for them, okay, they are go-getters. But for most of us, it's just be laid back. Things will happen. Don't overfight. So context.
Okay. So what would you say is the biggest problem facing the tech ecosystem in Africa?
Capital. I'd say it's capital. And why capital? Because I don't know if you know this interesting story about Silicon Valley and how Silicon Valley actually came to be Silicon Valley. There was a time when I think there needed to be innovation within the United States, right?
Yeah.
So these big organizations, these big universities came together and like brought a lump sum of cash, and then they were like, okay, cool, we need to drive innovation as much as possible, right? So they got that lump sum of cash and dropped it into the area where Silicon Valley is, and they were like, whoever has ideas, we're going to support you with this money to build this, right? So with that money and resources, they were able to build much, much faster, like grow exponentially.
Yeah,
so
any idea could pass.
Exactly,
yeah,
right? Because you have the money, you have the resources,
just experiment with everything, yes.
So I don't believe in all these other things where people say expertise, simanya, learning. If there is money,
I'll put my life to it. I get you.
That's simply it. So capital, we don't have money to like make these things happen.
With your experience, how have you worked around capital? You have in your bio, that guy just removed that video, but you had explained such a heavy bio to us. So how have you worked around capital? We've also hosted some venture capitalists on the podcast, and the argument is around that the capital is there. We have the money. It's just that people are not serious. Other guys talk about the formalization, how we want to mostly operate our business informally, which I also don't really agree. But for you, how have you worked around capital? Do you just stated it's one of the problems?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the problems. And for me, it's been a battle of having to balance how we get capital. Now, for Wapi, what I've done is I do consultancy work on the side with like US companies and good money, and then that's what I'm putting into Wapi, right? That's what we're using to run things. And in other cases, you then try to like run a very tight-knit operation whereby you're making sure you're not spending too much, and things are moving. But again, because you're not spending too much, you can't grow like this, right? So you have to grow slowly. And that comes to like the thing that these venture capitalist people are talking about. When they're investing their money, they expect that they get 10x or 100x, right? But when you look at most of the companies we have here, that's not possible because they do not have initial investment to grow that much, right? From the start, instead of fighting for growth, they're fighting for survival, which isn't the case out there where venture capital has actually become big.
Yes, people are not fighting for survival at all. Yeah.
People are just, hey,
they're experimenting with everything.
Let's do crazy things and see what happens. But that's not the case here. So the venture capitalists can't expect people to really get that if they do not have a grounding, right? I like how someone put it one time, that safety net.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Even
like you can just always fall back and restart something else. But here you depend on this one thing and it has to work.
So yeah, I think that's the problem right there. But is it going to change? I think so. And it comes down to like, are there more people like us now that are coming in and understand the problem that are willing to invest, right? If you see, for example, Zofi Cash just did their 1 million round, and all these other founders that are then raising. So those are the people that we can now hope can later come back and inject capital into what's happening. And you see that through how it has happened in the US, the PayPal mafia, the what mafias, these people who built earlier companies like Elon Musk and the likes, who have amassed a certain amount of wealth and are now the ones investing in like the other people that are coming up.
Do you feel like we'll get a Silicon Valley era in Africa where we'll get people to believe in the space and pour in a lot of money?
Yeah.
Or is it happening?
I think it's actually already happening, right? In Lagos, Nigeria, you see the guys who founded Andela, the guys who founded Flutterwave, the Ease and What's of his life, the Sholas of Paystack.
Yes.
Those are guys now investing. Like if you're in Nigeria and you're building a startup, if you have those guys on your cap table and they've given you money, you know you're going to build something, right? So it's already happening. Like we see these ecosystems that are ahead are sort of having that ripple effect. Our neighbors, Kenya, are also having the same, right? So it can and definitely will happen. And yeah, it could be sooner than later. Did you know there's a like silicon savanna being built in Kenya?
No.
I've actually heard about it. There's like a whole, I think 100-acre
Kenya is
space
crazy
where the guys
YouTube is
are actually
there,
building a silicon savanna. Like it's a city just for tech. And I was like mind blown, like wow. So yeah.
Everything seems to stop in Kenya though, all the time. Like everything stops in Kenya. Is it because of our political environment? Do you feel like it's a thing, or do you feel like we don't have the skill? Like you said, the Kenyans are doing stuff more better organized.
Yeah. It's I think it's both political environment and then incentives too, right? Because you'll find that the amount of paperwork, the amount of back and forth you need to like set up something here in UG is slightly harder than it is in Kenya, right? That is why you see now Chigali is sort of leapfrogging ahead of us, because guys have made systems easy that side. So it's that political structure and like bureaucracy, but then again talent, and talent is still a thing because there are already people in Kenya who are already building cool stuff. That's why it became easy for the likes of Microsoft, Amazon to actually start up there. And interesting enough, why I think also talent is a key thing is when Andela started in Kenya, for them to come to Uganda, because they had never thought they could come to Uganda, but when Ugandans started going to Kenya and applying and getting into Andela, they're like, oh,
so there's talent here.
There's talent in Uganda.
Yeah.
So talent does crazy things. And I think that's why Kenya has benefited a lot from it.
Do you think our government has a role to play?
Yeah, I think it definitely does.
Why I ask this is, over time, some government people have taken an interest in listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
So, usually when we highlight problems, we want to also give them some solutions from our perspective. Yeah. Now, with your experience, what do you think they can do?
I think setting up policies that favor like innovation, right? And that can take a whole bunch of things. But off the head, one simple example I can think of is Nigeria already has access to Starlink. Why does it Uganda? Right?
What would it take for us to? How do we get to Elon Musk?
It's simple. Yeah. What's it called? It's simple regulatory approval, right? Elon Musk said for all the other countries that are left, it's pretty much regulatory approval that's blocking. So is there like someone in the government that's pushing for that? Right? Because instead of looking at it in a way that this American man is going to come and now take this monopoly, I think the idea is how many remote areas in Uganda can benefit from having internet access readily available, like no matter, right? Without having to set up fiber optic cables and all these other things. it would be crazy. If we're talking about reaching the last mile and reaching everyone, I think that's one of the ways we can do it. Access to internet, right? That's just one simple example. The other is, how are they like regulating fees and like levies or taxes that are put onto. I think the best example was recently when they were bringing up this digital tax, right? And I applaud the government for actually rethinking that, right? Because the digital tax wouldn't have affected the companies, it would have affected us as the individuals, right? Because when they just increase the money. So I guess some of these steps they're already taking, and that's wonderful. But yeah, they can just do more to provide easier access through regulatory approvals.
Do you feel like there are future promising trends for us?
Yeah, I think they are. With the government, they're now invested in doing more programs for startups. Interestingly, NSSF High Innovator, which is, I guess, NSSF still government, but yeah, it shows some progress, right? Because I don't think any other East African country has a similar program running, maybe apart from Rwanda, actually. Then they're now doing partnerships with companies like the Innovation Village, Centenary Tech. We're actually part of a program. We just got into a program called the LEAP program that's run by the Ministry of ICT.
The what program?
LEAP.
LEAP program.
Run by Ministry of ICT and Ministry of ICT, Center Technologies and MTN Foundation. And this is to like push and support innovations within the country, right? So yeah, these are some of the things that they're actually doing. I would say they're not seated and not ignoring. They're actually building out something, and that's really cool to see.
Now, with from your experience and from all these different companies you've tried to work for, do you feel like there's room for collaboration, like with us, like say you got on Netflix, and how fast do you see that happening here?
Yeah, I'd say there's room for collaboration.
Like big collaboration where we have like Wapi hiring all Facebook Next staff or something like that from like
that. I think that's already happening. I don't know if you've heard of Kasaiba Technologies. Kasaiba Technologies does hiring for Microsoft. And they're a Ugandan company. They do hiring for Microsoft across East Africa.
Oh, wow.
Which is
that's
very impressive, right? So there's room for collaboration. Another example is Sente. Sente has a partnership with Visa, where they're basically creating Visa cards for businesses, right? So these big partnerships can happen. I think we just need to show because I think sometimes we approach these things in this way of thinking like the Western or international companies are savers, right? But at the end of the day, these are also businesses. They need to like make profit, right? So if you come to them with a proposition that shows them how they make that money, it's most likely going to happen, right? So we need to organize and create value propositions that don't position us as just beneficiaries, but also position us as contributors to their success. So
yeah, how is Wapi positioned to be in such a position where they're adding actual value to?
Yeah. So how we are thinking of it right now is it's very hard to map out the skill set and expertise that exists within Uganda, right, or even East Africa. So our goal this year is, can we map out and like profile between 10,000 to 50,000 people across the country in terms of the skill set they have, right? So that if an international company is...
The benchmark here is skill set, no qualification.
Skills. Like, what can you do? Can you design? Can you write? Starting with that, right? So that if a company is coming in, if Netflix is coming in and they're like, okay, cool, we want to run a show in Uganda. How many script writers do we have? How many video editors are available? How many these, right? That information is readily available. So we're already doing this, and there's a company from the US helping us called Idea Foundry. They recently did a investment of sorts to help us benchmark this and pretty much find out. But the idea is, can we then use that information to attract conglomerates, big companies, and show them that, okay, you want to come to Uganda, these people are there, these skill sets, these qualifications, and these are a number of people available to do that, right? And we're also doing it in partnership with another company called Razi. Razi does more market intelligence. So they find out is business there? And then we find out other people and talent needed to get you that business there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, with your experience, do you feel like it's now advisable for more young people here to venture into tech?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's a now more defined career path?
Yeah, I
people?
actually believe it's very, very defined now.
Yeah.
Like, a couple of years back, no one would even think of being like a software engineer as like a very, very successful path.
Because I remember for me, Kenzia,
Yeah.
Kenneth, that's my name.
Yeah.
When he's also my elder brother, by the way. So when he had left campus, that's the first year software engineering was introduced at MOOC.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had even flunked actually, but
Yeah,
because it was new, he could
yeah,
just pass.
so
Yeah, he went with, I think he had 13 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, then he passed, but it has worked out for him, man. Like, it's crazy.
Right.
Like, it's defined, and to me, it takes you away from, like, you can just work your job and do that.
Yeah, it definitely does. And it's interesting that you actually talked about how you also flunked, because like for me similarly,
Yeah.
I flunked, but I already knew I wanted to be a software engineer, right? That was like from Form 5. Initially, pilot as a kid, then to architect. Then Form 5, I go around at Google search and I'm like, what are the highest paid jobs? And I'm like, I see lawyer, doctor, software engineer. I'd never wanted to be a doctor, so that was out. Law was never a thing, but I was really good with computers.
Yeah.
So I was like, yo, if I'm really good with computers, why don't I just do this? Like, it will be effortless. So I did software engineering. But Form 6, I get my 6 points, man. 6 points. I was like, yo, like, what did you do with 6 points? Luckily, I get into Cavendish University. But I think even more luckily, while I'm in vacation, I get my first job. I think I actually didn't mention this, but my journey starts as I was at home. My brother's friend comes. He used to have like a potato and charcoal company. So he comes home with his truck and he's like, wait, come and go and sell some charcoal and potato. So I jump on the truck, we go around and do door-to-door sales. Then I get hired as a charcoal and potato vendor. So I move around with like a sack of charcoal and potato, restaurant, going with samples and being like, hey, you guys, our potato and charcoal is good. So there, I go to Nakwa Business Park with their fancy offices, find this cool guy, I pitch the potato. He's like, hey, you've pitched very well, which comes to like my public speaking, right? So he's impressed with my pitch and tells me, come back the next day, we're going to give you a job. I come back the next day, vacation, no experience, no nothing. They give me the job. They're like, okay, what are you really good at? So I tell them, I'm good at IT stuff. That's what I'm passionate about. So they give me an IT support role. From there, I then get this scholarship with Google and Udacity to learn web development. And that's where I then get to meet Andela. So first story short, Andela, programming and everything, right? But that whole journey was defined by the fact I got 6 points. I was like, you know what? I got 6 points, but that's not going to define me. And as a software engineer, at the time, it really wasn't
a thing. Yeah, people are about the traditional professions. Exactly. You have to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, whatnot. Yeah. So, and now engineers are struggling so much in the country, but that's a story for another day.
I hope parents know this and they can like guide them.
They do, yeah.
But yeah, so I get into Andela and then I do software engineering. And man, it's been the best, right? Like I wouldn't change it for anything.
So what inspires you to become like a tech leader?
I think what inspires me is like the need, like the problems we have. And sometimes it can be crazy. You can be there and then you notice that something's messed up and you're like, maybe I should build something for that. There are so many problems within Africa and Uganda that make it a very attractive opportunity if you can see those problems, right? And yeah, I think for me that's golden. Being in a position where I know there will always be something that can be solved is amazing because there's a challenge everywhere you turn. Yeah.
What lessons have you learned for now that you can share to, I don't know if you have children yet, but that when they listen.
Lessons, consistency is key, and I think that's a fact. Those things they say 10,000 hours, it's a fact, man. Even in software engineering, the more time you put into it, the better you get at it. So being consistent and putting in the time eventually pays off. Like hard work actually pays. That's the truth. But I guess the benefit of
how do you define your hard work?
That's what I'm getting to. The benefit of software engineering is that hard work doesn't mean it's like sometimes working smart, right?
But the time as well, like the dedication you put into it. Say for Cristiano Ronaldo to be that good, he has to put in the work, the trainings, and whatnot. Now, for you to be good to write lines and code, how much time do you put in?
I'd say recently I've been putting in this time writing code, right? But at the start, I would put in close to like 16 hours over a day. 16 hours. And I did that, I think, for like a year and a half, or I think 2 years. And I would say that's when I experienced the most growth, man. It wasn't great in terms of like work-life balance, but I experienced a certain level of growth that was crazy. And to put that into perspective, I grew from like a salary from earning 1x to earning close 30 times what I was earning within that period.
How was that like in your mind though? That's crazy. Like money is insane. Money makes people go mad.
It was crazy. But I think for me what kept me grounded is that I was then putting that money back into the company that I'm building, right? But I can say it was very fruitful. Like it felt good to see that my hard work is actually paying. So 16 hours, you rest, sleep for 8 hours. But you don't need to do that much. You can say 10 hours of your day, right? I guess your 8 hours of work, and then 2 to 4 hours after that learning something. The tip that I used to have is I wake up in the morning, just put in like 30 minutes, go on Medium and read an article about like a tool or something around software engineering. It can be as simple as that.
What frameworks and libraries do you use?
I use React and JavaScript as a primary language and Python, but I use React a lot. But these days, what I'm into mostly is Next.js. It's like built on top of React, but it's a very performant, and I'd say the best way to build the web these days.
I see. Yeah. Do you feel like with the diversity of AI, it will take your job first? Let's start there.
I don't think so. Will it
be in the future where I can just put in prospects in AI and it writes my lines and so I don't have to come to you?
That's very possible. But I think the question comes down to what's your job as a software engineer, right? If your job as a software engineer is to just write lines of code, then that's definitely going to get taken. Because that's actually not even going to get taken. It can happen right now because there's something called AutoGPT, which is like the next level of ChatGPT, where AI can now like work on autonomous tasks with like little to no human input. And with AutoGPT, you can tell it I want to design a web page, and it will write for you that code for the web page, right? But the catch is the code is not quality code, right? It's not to the level and understanding of like a business problem. As a developer, you've been there and you're just writing code, just dishing out code, that part's already taken. But if you've been engrossing yourself in like the business side and understanding the things you're building, then that's something that AI can't take. Maybe in the future, but that's like 10, 15 years away from now. So for now, you're still pretty much safe if you go beyond writing code and also understanding like the business side of things.
But how do you imagine the future of AI and programming?
I imagine the future of AI and programming being, I wake up as a dev and 70% of my work is done by AI. And 30% of what I'm doing now is the human input that AI can't do, right? And
so do you feel like the more times we're going to use AI, the more we erase the human input?
Not entirely. I think we'll still need human input, but we erase mundane or repetitive tasks that we used to do as humans. And I think that's a beautiful thing, man. Imagine, I don't know, I guess let's give an example of copywriters, right? Previously, copywriters would have to log their nuggets and look for copy and come up with like this wonderful thing. But right now, you just create a prompt and then have AI generate that copy for you, right? Now, most people think that copywriters are defunct. But I don't think that's necessarily true. They have just been upgraded, right? And for those who have learned how to use the technology, they're earning more, because imagine if it took you 1 day to write copy and it now takes you 10 seconds, how many clients can you have within that same space of time?
Millions. But here's the thing though, yeah? When you look at copy that you get from AI and how it's fancy, it's nice, but it then starts to feel like radio and podcast.
That's true.
Yeah. So you see, like how you sent me this bio, and then all this time you're thinking, okay, it's really just ChatGPT automated. But then it's pretty cool. Like when I read it, this is how I want to say introduce myself. If it was mine, that's how I want to introduce myself. But now with copy, let's say social media for like social media handlers and whatnot, if they have to use copy AI, I feel so much automation then kills the sales perspective of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like I'll ignore all tweets, and
That is very true.
yeah,
Because they sort of become like a Terminator.
yeah,
Robots speaking to each other. I guess that's true. But that comes to the thing I mentioned, right? If you're just focused on believing that AI is replacing you, then you just dish out that copy as it is. Whereas if you think of AI as a value addition, like I said, 70% of the work, 30% is you. You get that copy and then add like a personal touch to it.
True.
And I guess that's the human thing I was talking about, right? Humanizing.
We'll always need.
Yes.
It needs to be there.
Humanizing this output that we get from the AI.
So, in like latest trends of web development, what do you think? What are your thoughts on those trends?
Yeah.
Do you also feel like there's need for businesses to have websites?
That's an interesting one. I still think it's important for businesses to have websites, because if not websites, then what, right? Social media.
Yeah.
But social media.
Because then look at people's attention spans, right? The website is like a whole big thing, and you're literally just breaking down the website on social media all the time.
Yeah. But that's why websites have also evolved, right? If you look at most websites, the ones that have words and text and whatnot are not going to get as much engagement.
Yeah.
So you need to create your website in such a way that they're engaging, right? So that's why you see, if you check out Apple's website, the website doesn't have words talking about the devices. They have
the
images,
devices.
they have videos.
Yeah.
As you're scrolling through, you're seeing this thing rather than reading about it, right? So I think that's what the future of websites is supposed to be like. If the attention span is low, what's capturing attention, and do that. I don't think social media will replace websites. I actually don't think that.
Yeah, but what are your thoughts on web development in general, really?
Web development in general, I think it's going to evolve, man. It's definitely going to evolve, and AI is going to be at the center of that. Not only in terms of how we engage. I'm crazy talking about how we engage, because the Vision Pro just came out last week, right?
Yeah.
And you see these use cases that Apple shares, and you're like, okay, this is cool. Is this how we're going to be engaging with these things in the future, right? As a person, am I going to be wearing my Vision Pro, my VR headset, to scroll through this website? So if that's the case, we are now no longer building websites to have text and all this content. There are different ways that's going to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's going to evolve.
What are some challenges you've faced as a full stack developer? You want to share before you jump into your projects and
I'd say it's sticking to one thing, and it's crazy, but that's actually a challenge. Sometimes we get so engrossed in being multifaceted that you take on too many things, and then you end up compromising on quality. So for me, that's been a challenge, whereby I'm doing so many things and then I end up not doing all of them so well. So it's something that you, I guess, learn with experience and get better at, but it's an actual challenge. The other thing would be, I think, interacting with Ugandan companies. And I'd already mentioned this, but man, Ugandan people don't want to pay. Ugandan companies don't want to pay for the most part. you do amazing work, and not you do. They want you to do
Amazing work.
but not pay you enough for that amazing work, right? And I think that's still a challenge.
How do you want? I totally understand that in full context, right? But how do we define what's your work's worth, right?
Yeah.
Two things. When I just left campus, I got straight into employment, right?
Yeah.
African Internet Group took me on. Then, so one day I was walking into office, and one of our bosses, all of us had just come, so we're negotiating contracts, we're done. And so they're giving guys like 1.3 million, right?
Yeah.
So that's around $300, I think. I don't know. So this guy was on the phone and saying, man, do you know in Africa, you can just give someone $300 and they will work for you like a horse? So, so how do we define? But by the way, to the people that were getting this money, then most of them were doing, they were looking at it as, okay, this is really brilliant start for us. Like, we'll rise, this is it. Like, average is, of course, below that.
Yeah.
So how do we define work's worth? In your perspective?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. The way society does it is something called a cost of living adjustment, like report, right? And what that means is that they'll go around, find out, okay, if a tomato is 100 shillings in Uganda, then this is how much we expect these people to be earning based off of that. If a tomato is 100 shillings, they need this many tomatoes in a month, so they then use that to define how much someone's supposed to be paid, right? And that's how it normally works. How do we then change that? I think it's sort of like a domino effect, right? If, let's say, each company was paying their employee a minimum of 2 million a month, that means more buying power, more purchasing power. That means when people are coming to buy things, they're going to pay more, right? If people are paying more to buy things, that means businesses are earning more. If businesses are earning more, they're able to pay more,
employees,
right? So do you see that sort of domino effect? The crazy thing is, though, where does it start from?
Yeah.
Is it the businesses that take that leap of faith and decide to pay more? Or is it like, no, but I think it actually has to then start from the businesses.
Yes, it starts from the businesses.
Starts from the businesses.
They take the leap of faith to invest into their businesses by investing into their labor.
Yeah. And then in the long run, that's how it sort of comes back full circle. But I think in between there's a blocker, right? And it's either, and I say this with a grain of salt, it's either government, and government in terms of if a business is making this money, tax, how much are we taxing them? And then also individuals. Because you'll find that some of these companies that are paying people that much money are making sick profit.
Yeah, but there are still companies that make sick profit, and in just production alone, right?
Yeah.
You'd find whenever I often like drive out of Kampala, so when I pass Mukono, I find those companies, those factories.
Yeah.
So you find those people very early in the morning, say you're moving on, that are going to work. Then one day you find out it starts as a rumor that they're getting 7,000 shillings a day. Then you randomly talk to like two of them, and they're getting like 4,000 actually. The guy getting 7,000 is like a team lead, something like that. Yeah. But then you Google the company and look at the sales they're making. Well, you see the company's expansion, right? And you're like, but how is this possible?
So it also comes down to like the individual companies themselves, right? Because there are some companies who make a lot of money, and in return, again, like we say, it starts with a business, invest that back into their people, and there are those that won't. But now that's where government again comes in, right? Yeah. If we have regulations whereby that's actually sort of mandated in some sort of way, minimum wage and all, then it happens.
That makes sense. Yeah. So the other thing though is, again, when we're just people usually who come to invest here and start businesses here. So my issue here is with the gap between organizations, how they are run, and the communication between organizations and the people they decide to employ, their employees. So the thing I've observed the most, and I've worked for almost all the online marketplaces that I've started here, Jumia, Kilimall, whatnot, all of them, is they come with an already designed model. Yeah, say they'll come with an Amazon model, and they want it to work here. Then they'll force it to work here when it definitely cannot work here. And then that either they will downsize employees in the long run, or they will cut salaries so they can try and forge some sort of expansion. Yet they're actually playing with a lot of money, right? They're almost like Silicon Valley companies. They have all these investors that keep giving this money. So there's that. They fail to actually realize business here. What do you think about that? Is there business here for these companies, the labor, or just how these companies are run? Most companies now, like you've also been in the startup space.
I think there's business for these companies, right? But I love actually how you framed it. They come here with this Silicon Valley mindset and these ideas that are foreign, and try to indoctrinate them onto like locals, and that really never works. And I think one market that has shown this perfectly is India. You go to India with your US way of doing things, man, it's not going to work. You need to have locals come in and actually implement these things for you and build it specifically for that market. Now, where it's interesting is that something that actually works in India might possibly work in Africa.
Yeah.
Because they're seeing that.
But also, I had Hilary Bamlinda on this podcast. I think it was the first episode of season 2.
Yeah.
So one of the things he mentioned that made sense. Now he's into production. I have also worked for him at some point. So Kenneth was asking him back and forth on to why he chooses to invest into the areas he invests in. So he talks about production, things he's investing in chocolate, gum chocolate and whatnot, urban gweke, and so many other things. Now, he says that he looks at trends in the USA because he's sure that things that work in the USA eventually work here.
Yeah.
Right? Say, for example, this podcast. The podcasts in the USA make people a lot of money. I don't have to work a second job. I just have to sit down, use my connect, get people like you that have something to like share, then I make money off that. But here it's the market, the content market is still struggling. Guys want to spoil your content, then they give you peanuts for it, then they can't even factor into it. So there's that. There's the fact that he says what works in the US eventually works here. And I have that same faith. But then I have seen companies come with models that are the Silicon Valley mindset and they fail here. Or they take so much time, then they now have to put the burden onto employees by downsizing them, or they close shop. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's true, right? Like I just say, but the thing comes into approach and implementation, right? And I think the simplest way we can show this picture is if you look at Amazon in the US, not even Amazon. Let's look at Netflix, right? Netflix in the US, people can pay with credit cards and whatnot, right? And then when Netflix comes to Africa, they first start with, they're only going to stick to people paying with credit cards and debit cards and whatnot. But eventually they realize, guys, this is not a cashless economy. Either you implement mobile money and all these other things, or you're actually not going to get customers. So they eventually have to do the same, right? And I think that's where it comes down. Like, on top,
you can. I didn't even think I can pay Netflix with mobile money now.
In Uganda, not yet, but like in other regions, it's actually supported, right? So
that's mean, seeing as we introduced mobile money. Please go.
Man, it's just crazy. But you look at the general idea is paying for movies online, and that works. But how are you implementing that always changes. Another example is Uber, right? Yeah. Again, Uber also came with the same notion. So they're expanding into territories. And I think the Uber story is like one of the most brilliant or like up and down stories when it comes to building startups. Their expansion, right? Because they would come to these areas and they want to again do credit cards. But no one uses credit cards, man. Yeah, no one uses credit cards. And if they're hard-headed and they stick to that, they're not going to make money. So they now have to adapt and introduce things like cash, introduce things like mobile money. Uber now actually has mobile money. They even have where you can load. So things like that.
They have wallets, right?
They even have wallets, right? So things like that are what companies need to do if they are getting into these markets. And they can only do that if they have made their research, right? And sometimes they do, but how are they making that research? They'll send some white person to come and ask you questions.
That's so true.
What else do you expect to get, right? And maybe this is missionlessly plugging, but that's why I think companies like Razi make sense. Because Razi runs this thing where they get gigs for like normal people like you or myself.
Yeah.
And you go on Razi and you then are given a gig to ask questions about products. So you can like go to a shop and you're asking about how much is the cost of Colgate? Is Colgate the only brand that you have in this shop for toothpaste, right? Or do you have Fresh Up? Do you have these other things? And as a local asking you those questions, you're bound to like give a more appropriate response, right? Because you can start it off as like a conversation. If a white man came and asked you, you also sometimes maybe want to impress, or you sometimes go to hold back that information, right? So those small nuances that go into getting into a territory, I think sometimes define whether these companies will be successful or not. But the overall ideas are bound to work.
Now that for you you're building here, how have you designed your strategy?
Man.
In terms, strategy and execution, like how are you bridging that gap? Because now for us here at Chivota, I wake up in the morning, now there's even ChatGPT. Tell it, you prompt, it gives you strategy, then you tailor it. Then comes execution, my friend. Even when you have the money. Yeah. That's true. How are you going about that?
Man, I think it's a constant learning journey. That's the truth.
Do you feel like you have to re-innovate stuff? Okay, let's just finish, then I'll tell you how this works.
I think a lot. It's a constant journey that's changing, right? For example, if we try something this month or for like the next 3 months, you realize that it's no longer working, so you have to try something else. But how fast we are strategizing and building that is what determines if we're alive or not. And crazy enough, that's something that you then learn from like Silicon Valley and startups outside, right? Because they build very fast. Learn, build fast, break things very fast, right? And I think that's how we have tried to do it. Maybe not as fast, because there are some things that have been slow, and that comes down again to the money to be able to experiment. But for us, it's having that notion at the back of the head. We're trying something to see if it works. If it doesn't work, we should be open to the idea that we need to try out something else.
How much money do you have? People who have the luxury to experiment and try and error.
And that's why it's been slow for us, right? Like, we can't do it as fast as them. But it's honestly the best way you can.
I agree with you 100%. I just remembered my most previous job. The deal was to try and error, really. There's no available data on stuff, so you have to first of all develop the data and try and error. But much as I believe these people had a lot of money, they still could not stomach that process through. So for you, how did you develop the hard skin to just let me do this for life?
Man, I think it comes down to why you're there.
True.
It really comes down to why you're there. Because, man, there are days when I think I could have given up on Wapi and been like, man, why am I putting all this money into this? But for me, Wapi was always something that's dear, and to like the rest of the team that I built this with, right? Because we have been in that situation where, man, you can't find a job opportunity. But it's not that you're like the worst person. You just don't have access to like the right network so that people to get you there, right? So that constant reminder of being that gap between people getting that is what gives you blind faith, and you're like, man, let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing it.
That's really super dope though. Let me see what else that organized to talk about. So let's talk about some of the most challenging projects you've worked on. If you can take us through like details.
I think the most recent one, which I'm actually developing 6 platforms at once. It's been actually quite challenging, but a lot of lessons and learnings, right? And that's why you see sometimes we try to do things differently. When we started, we didn't have the demos. Now we have the weekly demos. Now we have all these things. And yeah, it's been one of the most challenging things because we want to do something really cool for you guys and deliver this quality, and we also have to use like resources available to pull off the same thing. So it's been, I don't know if I can talk about it fully.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, so we're building with you guys, I think, the cloud restaurants, and then also revamping the websites for the patio, the villa, and the maze, right? And also some other cool stuff coming. So through that process, we've had to work with a lot of our talent, the designers at the initial stage, then the developers, and then also sort of having in a product manager like Brandon who does that for us. And it's been a challenge, but an interesting challenge, because if we're able to pull this off, I think it will open up a lot more opportunities.
To also define like your strength, right?
Yeah, it will really define that, right? And I think the other one.
Now, in terms of now, let's say, say now like for us, in terms of business development, how much value do you pick from this project for your own personal gains? Like, I feel like it's a roller coaster, right? Today you're doing cloud restaurants, the next time you're doing some guy doing some Uber-like thing. Like, where's your mind at with all these businesses? Do you feel like, okay, you're everywhere, you have to understand everything?
Yeah, I think for now, that's true. We are sort of everywhere. And that's because, man, we need the money. So we have to build everywhere. But I think along the line, right, in the future, we'll have developed a sort of niche, right? And we'll say, okay, so we're good at building, but this is what we're specifically good at building. And these are the expertise we can give you. Right now, I'm hoping that can be AI. And the future I'm thinking of for Wapi is, can we center ourselves as the one-stop development partner for companies that want to incorporate AI into their businesses, right? And we're going to try that out with some products that we're going to be rolling out soon. So we're trying to think in that direction. And that may be where we go.
Success, rewarding projects. This remember those were challenging ones.
Successful, I'd say the KTA symposium.
How do you define the success in this case? Kenneth give you a heavy check?
No, it wouldn't be the heavy check. But it would be, have people used it and like there are very many people found value.
Yes, I actually really at the symposium. Yes, I applaud you for that really greatly.
Are we also getting other people coming in because of that, which has been the case? Like people who use that symposium platform were like very impressed.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah, we've kept on getting more people coming through it, right? And that's what we try to push for. And hopefully when we also release these cloud restaurants with you guys and these products, people find value. So it comes from like people using it and like being excited about it.
So what are some of the most interesting technologies you've worked with as someone in that tech space? So you can just go deep into them. Let's see why. What was challenging? What did you do?
I would say crazy enough, I worked with ChatGPT before all you guys knew it was ChatGPT. That was in 2021 when they just released their GPT-3 model. So the startup I was working with them called Pareto, the idea was that we wanted to sort of think about how can we use GPT-3 to classify tasks and do a lot of this repetitive work. So I was then tasked with coming up with a solution that uses GPT-3 to classify user requests. Okay, if an entrepreneur comes in and is like, I want you to find me 50 software engineers in the US who know React. How can we classify that and break it down in such a way that we divide it and know, okay, this lady who is working on it is going to do this. This is how much we're going to charge for it. These are the resources they need. And this is how we're going to structure it when outputting the data. So in that case, I had to build out a system that uses GPT-3 to interpret that information, classify it, and then also interact with Google APIs to turn that information that has then been collected and actually present it into a sheet that's then connected to Stripe for payments and bills this person. So that was a very interesting thing to work on. Because at the time, again, GPT wasn't a thing, but it was cool. My first interaction with AI. Let's see, what other cool ones have I worked on?
I've also just remembered worked on transport me before Uber came here.
Uh-huh.
So we had done a hailing thing. But for us, it was mostly for the cab guys, right? These guys with that moves things.
Yeah.
So that was the intention. We're like, okay, in the future, maybe if people are also shifting homes, we see a lot of people moving and they don't have access to these people. So you can just get from your community. The money lacked, and then Uber came. Then we tried to pitch to Uber, and
they didn't buy it. Yeah, I guess that's a problem. The other interesting one, we have done some work with Nita. Nita Uganda.
The guys will slow down our ideas.
We've done some work with Nita Uganda, which was also very interesting. We ran for them. They had something called the Nita E-Government Awards, and again it was also
like the symposium.
Yeah, it was like a symposium. So we also did that for them, and they were also very happy. And then there's also another project to work on with them, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say so, but it was about creating. I'll just give a high level. I won't go into detail. It was about mapping out the internet penetration with this project that Nita has been running around, spreading out fiber across the country. So the task was, can we create an application that when the president checks out, he can visually see how the internet is moving throughout the country via maps, and when he clicks on a point, it presents the information, and whatever internet points are put up there, clicks on this, it shows the government parastatus connected to the internet. That was also something we worked with.
What was the value then there?
It was just to show the president how the internet penetration has spread across the country.
Okay.
He never got to interact with it. That's the sad thing. He just worked with it, but he didn't get to use it. But it was also pretty cool.
That maybe could also create reason for allowing Starlink if they can understand the penetration.
Exactly. So those are some of the things.
So let's switch into Twitter. With Elon Musk's new algorithm. Do you find Twitter cool? Have you noticed significant difference?
Yeah, it's. I think in some sort of way it is good, but there's also definitely the bad. The good for me is that I now get to receive content from people who I don't follow, but is sort of relevant to me, right? Even if I'm not following this person, I'm constantly receiving their content. I could actually like it because for me,
it's addictive, yes, fine. You like
it is, man.
But that's why I don't like it. I'm like, no, you got me again. Why you being me Lugambo that I didn't choose to know?
So I think that's pretty cool. It has enabled me, and because for me I use Twitter for learning a lot of. I think a lot of my AI knowledge actually comes from Twitter. Because I'll scroll through.
It's pretty cool, yeah. If you can just combine the algo and prospect some few things with bad, and it can write you the code on how to make your tweets viral, or what tweets, or what they're using to give priority to tweets. So there's that information.
Right? I think that's part of the beauty of this takeover with Twitter. But I think the now sad side is, and in our case, we're developing something called Wapi Spaces, right? And this Wapi Spaces, that's the thing we're doing with Next Media, right?
Yeah.
And the idea here is that we're creating a platform that sort of enables influencers or creators monetize how they earn, right? And that would heavily depend on the Twitter API. Because we then need to plug into a Twitter API and get analytics on how these people's posts are doing, and then use that to create billing for these creators, right? But the problem now with that and with the new takeover,
that's super cool.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay. Because right now the biggest issue now with influencers, sorry to just cut you short, is conversion, right?
Yeah.
How you work with them and how, say you're pushing an event, how you convert the influencer making the noise on Twitter to a beer sale, to write down to that value to the actual sales, and that looks like something.
So that's sort of what we're actually looking to tackle. But also on the influencer side, imagine if you are an influencer with 5,000 or 2,000 followers, you still have some reach, right? So you don't necessarily need to have 100,000 followers to be able to earn, but with that reach, you can go ahead and let's say sign an influencing deal with Uvotam, and you post content. And Uvotam pays you based on how many people interact with that content, because the metrics are available. It even can go ahead to pay you based on how many people clicked, how many people signed up, because all that information is available. But now the problem comes in, which is what I was alluding to, is Twitter now charges there's a free version, which they still have, but that limits in terms of how many API requests and how much access you have. And then from the free version, the next one is $1,200 a month. Right?
Wait, the free version and the one Twitter Blue?
No, not the Twitter Blue. Now this is like the Twitter developer API.
Yeah,
We're building on their developer API. So they have the free version, but to access more data, you now need to pay around $1,200 a month. And you're like, that's a load of money, man. Right?
But it's worth the value, right? The value just explained.
At enterprise level,
yes.
Right? If we're closing contracts with people, like let's say Netflix or Coca-Cola, all these big companies, it makes sense. But if we're working with like the small companies that we're working with, it doesn't really can't
doesn't span out.
So I guess that's the crazy bit of the acquisition. But I still think Elon is building something really cool.
And the bots?
The bots, man.
Because then with all this AI, I feel like it's easier. We are interacting with so many bots. Also with how easily our data is being manipulated, right? Yeah. So right now, phones listen.
Yeah.
You don't have to have texted someone.
Yeah.
My phone is going to probably show me more Wapi ads after this conversation.
It's crazy.
So do you feel like there's like need to fight the bots? Or I also feel like it was just more of an echo to the fact that there are now bots operating and people should just be aware of that.
That's a good question. I'm honestly going to say I'm not really sure, right? Because man, the way Elon thinks is it's very unconventional, right? So he says yes, he's fighting the bots, but you realize the now CEO of Twitter is an advertising mogul, right?
Yeah.
She's a person very experienced in advertising. So in the long run, I feel like bots, but at the end of the day, I think it's also a play on how can they monetize Twitter, because he invested 44 billion.
So it has to come back.
It has to come back. And we're already seeing that. Because, for example, again, the developer APIs are now 1,200.
Then organization over verified what is $1,000.
Verified $1,000, right? So in some sort of way, the money is definitely coming in. Will he create more value? I think he will. Because you see he now has the super follow for creators, which I think is an amazing thing, because creators can now earn with that. The problem with that again is that, of course, it's available for people that side first before it gets here. But when it gets here, it will start to make sense. So,
do you think you'll be paying for all these things? You pay for Netflix, you have to pay for your internet to access YouTube, then you have to pay Ankomo.
Man, if I like Ankomo's content, I think I would do it. Because
what are the odds that you'd switch from consuming TikTok content for free, to paying for it on Twitter?
How long is TikTok content going to be free for, though? There's also that.
We'll go to Rambo or something. We'll go where the content
in
is.
some sort of way, all these people monetize.
But then the creators don't have money. Yeah? This is also the argument, like say with the streaming platforms.
Yeah.
How much Apple takes in terms of value add to the actual creators. Well, people now earn off millions, and I think they are surviving off their creations.
Yeah.
But the bigger scale is, I am not earning any single shilling of this podcast. But but I've published episodes for 2 years now.
On YouTube?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With really good watch time. I think now we have started monetizing on YouTube. The numbers have reached. But what are the odds that people will go and subscribe to pay an extra shilling, right?
Yeah.
For the content online? Because already, content firms here find it, they don't want to invest in content. They still don't want to give you money for content. Even though, really, it's quite evident that things like video content are the future. That's what people are consuming, but it's still a battle. So for us, again, what we're also creating an app where we can just own all the content. Like do say a Uvotam app where you can access. So we do just not this podcast, right? We have several other podcasts. Then we also produce podcasts for people who are interested in podcasts. So we want to like have a collection of all this content, something similar to what Afro Mobile is doing, I think. But we had the idea first. They just have so much more money. So, but also we would want for creators, right? So we have like where you have control on your content. On Twitter, basically now Twitter has made it easier. It's almost the same thing. You go, you have control on your content, what you post, you earn from it. So we wanted to do something like that. But how scalable it could be, because you look at the music industry, right? The creators would rather put the product out there, it's consumed, and that acts as the advert, right? Their products are adverts for them to make money. So there's that. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that are something that I don't know if I'm over giving out the things we're building, but to that,
no one is going to steal your idea.
And again, even if someone steals the idea, execution is always what matters.
Exactly.
And I wish more people in Uganda do that. Because people fear to share their things because that's still my idea, what.
But it's an idea, is really an idea until it's I agree.
So, but also doing something. Now you see that events thing we do with KTA and all these other guys. We're trying to expand that into becoming something of a pay-per-view sort, right? Whereby, if let's say you want to air out these episodes and you want people to get them, you can send out trailers or like you can send out snippets of these episodes, and then if someone wants to view a single episode, you charge them maybe like 500 shillings. It doesn't need to be a lot, but like you're charging them for just that one view, right? So they can watch this episode as long as they pay that 500. It's different from where someone has to pay subscription to access content that sometimes is maybe not content they want, right?
Yeah.
But
like what we do with DSTV, right?
Exactly, right? So imagine a situation, and where we think it makes more sense. It may not make as much sense for podcasts, but it can make sense for people who are constantly generating video content, right? A biggest example would be, for example, like Comedy Store. Imagine if Comedy Store, that's always airing out its free content on YouTube, was charging people to access the live show, even if they're not physically there, right?
What? So they do away with YouTube, where people are accessing the shows for free?
They can still do YouTube, because I think that's like what you talked about, right? Putting out content there that's free, that attracts people. But they cap that content.
True.
Right?
To maybe most interesting, or like to segments.
To arouse some interest. So that's someone who is now an actual interested person can go and pay for them to get this content. And we're still exploring and figuring out if it's feasible or not. But we think that's one of the ways we can give back to creators on top of what we're doing with Wapi Spaces. And in Wapi Spaces, it's because you're sharing your content on Twitter, you're an influencer.
Well, Wapi Spaces is like... Define the product.
Wapi Spaces is like a monetization dashboard for creators who do social media content.
So I upload my content to Wapi.
Yes.
In this case.
No. You upload it on Twitter, right? But as you're uploading that content, you already have an agreement with, like, let's say, a small shop down in Kochi Towers that I'm going to share this tweet. And if it generates this much, this is how much you're paying me. You may be paying me 50 shillings per interaction.
I still don't follow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So think of yourself as an influencer, right? You have 10,000 followers. I am Collins. I have a shop that sells shoes, right? I need to put my shop out there. But I can't afford to go to like this big... I guess influencer managing firms, right? The
agencies and not right?
So I approach you and I'm like, I need to get 50 sales from my product, right?
Okay.
The deal is I'll pay you either 500 shillings
per sale,
per sale, right? Yeah. And then maybe 50
or like
shillings
a percentage
extra.
of every sale, right?
Yes. 50 shillings extra per person who gets to see it, right? How do I know someone has seen it? Because Twitter has that information. So each time someone sees the product, as an influencer, I'm earning, but as a business person, I know I'm getting exposure, right? So versus a situation where you're running an ad with Facebook, and Facebook is the one getting all this money, here you're running an ad with the influencer, and they're the ones earning from it, right? So directly giving back to like the people or the creators on these platforms.
Oh, yeah. Okay. No, I totally follow. Well, is it operating already?
Not yet, sadly. Yeah.
Okay. I think we'll sign up for that.
So that's how I think of it. And then on the other side, the pay-per-view is content can then be paid per view. And yeah, that one, it works in the US because like...
So do I have to like sign up?
Yeah, you just create an account, right? And then you pay. Like you create an account, your email, password.
I pay whenever I'm going to watch something.
Whenever you're going to watch. If you're not going to watch, you're not paying.
Don't you feel like I'll be frustrated by transactions?
I don't think so, because...
Oh, no, it will be like whenever I want to take a safe border, right? I pay.
Yeah.
Okay. What are your plans for the future?
I want to start angel investing. Like, angel investing or do like a VC firm. Like, that's the big plan now. Because I've been frustrated with lack of access to capital. So now the next problem I want to solve is access to capital.
How do you suppose you're going to solve this problem?
Simple. Make money, make sure Wapi is successful, earn money, and then, give back into that. Or build networks with people who have that money and then use that.
Okay. Do you have... we usually conclude with this thing where we ask people to... How do they say it? The question is running out of my head. Legacy, that's it. What legacy are you trying to leave behind as Collins?
Yeah. That's interesting. I'd say, and this comes down to why I started or chose Wapi, because I'd like to think of that as my first legacy or my legacy. I wanted to build something that is not going to just be there for now. I wanted to build within an industry that has been there for ages. And for me, when I thought of that, it was jobs. Like, jobs are going to be something that's always there because humans will always need to work. So for me, my legacy would be...
Even with AI in play?
Yeah, even with AI.
Okay.
Those robots would still need to work. It's still a job. So my legacy would see Wapi transcend and like continue to be that, I guess, job sport, right? But beyond that, have I also impacted people along the way?
Yeah.
And I would like to think so. If you have a job and you're earning,
Yeah, definitely. That's like, I feel like, that's the biggest way you can impact someone. Yeah, but it's a pretty dope problem to solve around here. I mean, everyone is always looking for a job. Like, people need jobs. People need to be earning. And it's not healthy. Do you feel like we do not get good career guidance? Do you feel like that's lacking?
That's definitely true.
So don't you feel like Wapi should, since you're providing a job market, right, should also invest in informing the job market itself?
Yeah, I think we definitely can. We have plans to do so.
Oh, yeah.
Through master classes.
Yeah.
But for now, the focus is on let's first do one thing right and then get to that.
Now, I've been looking for a will partner. It's on those master classes, right? Because you have to like record them.
Yes.
And I was telling you, so this is like 1/4 of our business.
Yeah.
I just keep here, but we're investing into real actual production, right? So we have big cameras, we have heavy equipment, we have cranes, we have bigger lights. So we believe with equipment we are sorted to like do the production.
Nice.
No one to like, we've not gotten really big business. It's also the market is weird, right?
Yeah.
Because when you look at like people like Swang's Avenue, their story, they have to venture into so many things to get actual business for their production. They have to go into artist management.
Yeah.
You have to like expand big. So with us, you realize we now want to switch away just from the content production to like maybe doing full blown like a marketing agency where we're doing digital marketing for people, so that then there we can bring the value. Because right now the podcast, we don't make money from it, even though people want to like sponsor and they've wanted. We've just not gotten good deals. Deals where we feel like, okay, now yes, we can get out of accounts for that. But what it does for us right now is that since people can listen to it and it gets traction, and they see us doing it consistently, then they're interested into the services, maybe do their own podcasts and the equipment. So it just markets you over time for now. And it's doing that pretty well. Almost all our business is from just this podcast.
Wow, that's really good. Yeah, I've actually been seeing your content. You guys have been very consistent. Like the snippets you do where you post like a snippet.
Yeah.
I think those have been like really, really cool.
Yeah, we're trying. But with you, man, also. Yeah, for me, unless you have any other questions from your side.
No, I think that's technical. That's pretty much
this is it.
Yeah, just very honored to be an ordinary person being hosted on this podcast. Yeah.
I know I'll bring you back. So I'm a host, but I also produce now the whole podcast. So I'll produce a conversation with you and Kenneth, make it a little bit technical, and with very many ideas that two of you could share. That's it. Thank you, Colin.